Joey, what's up, bro?
Corey here,
Jack?
and welcome back to the Agape Life podcast. Today, hopefully, in the last one, my audio was a little bit low. Hopefully, this time it's not too high.
I hear you better anyway.
I
So,
did. We did a mic check before, and it sounded all right. So, hopefully, it seems to be a big difference between when I do the little bit of editing that I do, and I do it on my computer, and I have headphones on. So it's different between. It seems to be different between that and like if you play it on the TV or something.
yeah.
So I try. I'm trying to maybe this time I'll try to do it with my computer speakers instead of my headphones. And maybe if you're a headphone user, just be aware. You may have to turn the volume down a little bit or something. I don't know. We're still working through some things, but we're getting there.
This is still brand new to us.
Um, so we said last time that we were going to do Samson.
Mm-hmm. Does anybody know who Samson is
Um,
or anything about Samson?
well, the thing is, we also said that we were going to do children's stories, but come to find out, Samson's not really a children's story.
Not really. I mean, they kind of dumbed it down and made a children's story out of
Right.
it. But and Corey and I have talked about it this week, and it's a shame. Me as being a teacher, I just kind of fell into the rut, and I was teaching what was in the Bible school books, and lo and behold, I'm as guilty as anybody. So I'm asking anybody to forgive me where I might have misled, or not misled, but maybe come short in some of the teachings. But they don't, and I say this, and I'm just now sort of listening to myself. Don't take what you hear all the time and believe it. Research it yourself. You get right here and research it yourself, because there's a lot more to the stories sometimes. And like I said, I have realized as a Southern Baptist all my life that some of the literature that they use for teaching has dumbed these stories down in the Bible for children. So there's a lot more to it and a lot more in depth than what we were taught sometimes. So
For sure, and I think that they did it out of a good place. You know, they're trying to do good.
I think
But
they were just trying to get where kids could understand it. But as I get older, I'm starting to understand that kids understand more than we give them credit
yeah,
for.
and it's almost a disservice to try to dumb it down. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. And it kind of, I don't know, when we was talking about it this week, and as we've been studying these things and I'm seeing this, it's sort of starting to make me mad
Mm. Yeah.
that the writers would dumb it down for the kids, and the kids need to know the real truth.
Well, and
So,
here's something to think about. You said it makes you a little bit mad, but remember Jesus said, "Be mad, but do not sin. Be mad, but without sin,
absolutely.
or be angry, but without sin." So
Right. And I don't mean that mad like I'm furious or anything, but the fact that
yeah,
the people we trust to give us the literature to teach our children,
it doesn't really anger you. It frustrates you.
yeah,
It-
I guess that would be a
yeah.
better word for it. Yeah,
It's easy to get frustrated.
that
with
we're
things like
trying to
that.
be honest and teach the true thing, but yet at the same time, I have to take the responsibility because I should have went back and used my literature instead of their literature.
Hmm.
So
And now, so um, our episode on Jonah has not been released yet.
yeah, our 15-minute thing.
Yeah, our 15-minute Jonah episode has not been released yet. But I just feel like I don't know. I feel like I need to say that to let you guys know that we're doing this just as much for ourselves as anyone
Oh,
else.
absolutely. I'm learning so much.
More than anything to glorify God.
Absolutely.
But I just feel like I need to say that I'm learning just as much
right.
from this as
And not saying
I
we're
could ever expect anyone else to learn from what I'm saying. Hopefully, it's God speaking through me, but
And
I think it is. But it's I don't know, y'all pray for me on that.
Yeah, not to say
front,
that we're
or
100
us. on
not to say that
front.
we're 100% on what we're doing, because we make mistakes like anybody else does.
Absolutely.
And that's why we want you to listen to us. Maybe we can teach you something, and maybe you can teach us something if you'll give us some
Absolutely.
feedback. And tell us if we're looking at something or interpreting it different. And like I said from the very beginning, I see things totally different than 99% of the people in this world. So, right or wrong,
But
here I am trying to learn.
I feel like, and we in the last episode we did a lot of interrupting each other. We're going to try and not do that this time.
I'll try.
I think
it
you
was
got.
all,
I think
it was all me.
I think
I'm
you.
gonna
I
try.
think you got a little excited. Well, no, there was.
Oh,
I
I
mean,
was
I did it.
excited
I did
last
it some
week.
too.
I was excited last week. I was
We're going to try not to do that this week, but no promises.
no problem.
So the reason I say that is because we're going to be getting into some kind of touchy subjects in this one, honestly. So again, this is not a children's story, so beware of that. If there are any parents that's got children listening, this may be one you want to let them sit out on, because there's going to be some stuff that you may not want them to hear. But I'm not going to be talking about anything that I feel like is not in the Bible.
Biblical.
So I'm just going to give my 2 cents on the matter, and you can give yours, and we'll have 4 cents. And
I'll try to cut mine down to a penny.
but
Don't make no promises.
But yeah, so things may get a little bit touchy in this one, so just beware. So in my, I told you last week that I didn't really know. We said we were going to try and do an hour, but we've already been 10 minutes almost. I didn't know last week. I told you I didn't know really the story of Samson. I kind of knew it, but I didn't really know the whole thing, right?
Kind of got the basics of it, or had the basics of it.
So when I started studying, I went to Judges, of course. We're in Judges. Oh, goodness. It is, let's see, Samson is Judges 13? 13 through to the end, I believe. Nope, not quite. 13 through 16. So that's the story of Samson. But the book of Judges is so much more than just Samson. Samson is such a small part of the book of Judges. And I had no idea about this. So I'm going to give a little bit of backstory of what Judges is. So in my Bible, it gives me kind of a little overview. We went over this last week. It gives me a little overview of the book, who wrote it, things that like key concepts, verses that are worth memorizing, and places to look at stuff, key moments in the book. And it says that Christian and Jewish traditions say that the author was Samuel. So I take from that we're pretty sure it was Samuel, but it's not 100% sure, right? So Samuel probably wrote this book. And it happened in the 1300s to 1100s BC. So this was 1300 to 1100 years before Christ was born. And so if we look at the beginning of Judges, so basically this is a period of time where so Judges it begins with a generation after the people of Israel settled in the Promised Land. All right, so it's one generation after God led them to the Promised Land, right? So if we look in chapter 2, verses 6, I've got verses 6 through 23 written down here. So this is the death of Joshua. After Joshua sent people away, each of the tribes left to take possession of the land allotted to them. And the Israelites served the Lord throughout the lifetime of Joshua, and the leaders who outlived him, those who had seen all the great things the Lord had done for Israel. Joshua, son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died at the age of 110. They buried him in the land he had been allocated at Timnath-Serah in the hill country of Ephraim, north of Mount Gash. All right, so we've got Joshua, basically the leader of the Israelites, has died. He's been buried. While Joshua was in control, they followed God, right? They acknowledged God. They followed Him. They tried to live according to Him, right? And after Joshua, the people that had been with him, the elders that had been with him, I think that's what it says, right? And the leaders who outlived him, those who had seen all the great things the Lord had done for Israel. So the ones the leaders that outlived him had seen all the things that God had done for the Israelites. And while they were still alive, Israel was still following God, right?
Right.
So then we go into verse 10. After that generation died, another generation grew up who did not acknowledge the Lord or remember the mighty things he had done for Israel. The Israelites did evil in the Lord's sight and served the images of Baal. They abandoned the Lord, the God of their ancestors, who had brought them out of Egypt. They went after other gods, worshiping the gods of the people around them, and they angered the Lord. They abandoned the Lord to serve Baal and the images of Ashtoreth. This made the Lord burn with anger against Israel, so he handed them over to raiders who stole their possessions. He turned them over to the enemies all around, and they were no longer able to resist them. Every time Israel went out to battle, the Lord fought against them, causing them to be defeated, just as he had warned, and the people were in great distress. So, after that generation dies, the people turn from God. They start worshiping Baal and this, what was it, Ashtoreth?
Baal, I think some people pronounce that Baal. Different pronunciations of it. But anyway, it's all the same person.
You all understand.
But yeah, you understand. But
so they turned away from God, and then they started worshiping these other gods, who are either not real or they're demons or they're not God.
Right.
So they started worshiping them, and so God said, "Okay, if you don't want to be with me." He's not gonna, God's not going to. We have free will. He's not going to make you.
What I was just going to say, we have free will. God gave us free will. He says this.
Right. So if you want to live apart from God, God is going to respect that. He's going to say, okay,
yeah,
I'm not helping you.
If you don't want to be a part of my life, that's fine. I won't be a part of yours.
Exactly. So he's allowing all of their enemies, Israel's enemies, to come in and defeat them. It actually even says that the Lord fought against them, causing them to be defeated, as he had warned. So, and the people were in great distress. So now this is all happening before we're talking about Samson. Probably a good bit before. I don't know the exact timeline. Samson was the last judge, but
I think this is just laying down the platform.
Right. This is why all of this is happening. Right. So if we start.
So from one generation to another, and we kind of talked about this a little bit. Things are going good. People serving God, things are going good. And then all of a sudden people start taking it basically for granted, and they start leaving God out of stuff. And before you know it, you've got a generation that's back down in the valley again. They don't know the Lord. They don't trust the Lord. They're trying to do it themselves. And then once they hit the valley, they start praying and start teaching their kids. So the kids get kind of back up on that hill. They're praising God. They're doing what they need to do. And it's just kind of like a roller coaster if you look over history.
We haven't quite got that far yet.
No, not really.
We're still in the very early beginnings of it.
Just laying down a platform to kind of pay attention to what's going on here.
Yeah. But then in verse 16, this is going to explain what the book of Judges is even about. All right. Then the Lord raised up judges to rescue the Israelites from their attackers. Yet Israel did not listen to the judges, but prostituted themselves by worshiping other gods. How quickly they turned away from the path of their ancestors who had walked in obedience to the Lord's commands. Whenever the Lord raised up a judge over Israel, he was with that judge and rescued the people from their enemies throughout the judge's lifetime. For the Lord took pity on his people who were burdened by oppression and suffering. But when the judge died, the people returned to their corrupt ways, behaving worse than those who had lived before them.
Mhm.
They went after other gods, serving and worshiping them, and they refused to give up their evil practices and stubborn ways. So the Lord burned with anger against Israel and said, because these people have violated my covenant, which I made with their ancestors, and have ignored my commands, I will no longer drive out the nations that Joshua left unconquered when he died. I did this to test Israel, to see whether or not they would follow the ways of the Lord as their ancestors did. That is why the Lord left those nations in place. He did not quickly drive them out or allow Joshua to conquer them at all. So, this is basically saying what you said.
Mm-hmm.
So, the people will they have it good while Joshua's alive, and while the people that
Mhm.
saw the things that God did are alive. They're worshiping God, and they're headed towards God, right? Um, and then those people die out, and you've got a nation of people that are serving other gods. They're doing all of these wicked these wicked things. And God says, okay, if you don't want to be with me, I'm not going to be with you. So here are these enemy nations that are going to conquer you.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're in distress. So they start praying to God and saying, hey, we don't even know what to do. We don't know what to do. And then God will raise up a judge, which is someone that God is going to use to save Israel. And then he'll save Israel with this judge, and then once this judge dies, they go right back to the same thing. It
Right.
actually says that there were even more
Mhm.
wicked ways,
Right.
or ways more wicked than those who were before them.
Right.
So they Judges is a story, is a book of the same thing happening over and over.
It
It's
just
a roller
It's a
coaster,
roller coaster. It keeps
up
repeating
and down.
itself.
Yep.
And I think we need to pay attention to that here in the United States because here we are right here in Judges. I think we need to read it. We need to understand it. We need to pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
Our nation has been on a high for a while. And I think right now we're headed to the valley.
Yeah.
I really do. And
Yeah.
I don't want to get into politics and I don't want to get into all that. But you just have to follow history. And if you look at history, nations usually stand for somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 years or better, or 300 years. And the United States now is into almost 225 years.
Mm.
So it's, and I'm no, I don't know, I'm no professional about nothing, but I'm the type of person, I sit back and I look at things and I observe a lot. And I think our nation really needs to pay attention. I think we really need to be praying that God doesn't do us like this, that we end up in that sinful
Mhm.
nation, that God's going to say, okay, I'm going to turn my back and I'm going to let other nations come in and basically just take you down.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Because even I don't think that this really. I don't know. I feel like I need to share this. Even if because God will humble us, right?
he'll bring you to your knees.
Even if we think that we're doing the right thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I had an experience a couple weeks ago, or was it last week? I don't remember now. I think it was last week, where I wanted to. I felt like I needed to go out on the kayak and film just me talking about God and my opinions on some things and stuff like that. And I did it. I was out there. I bought this nice little mount and put it on my kayak, and I was out there. Things were going good. I had some really good. I was saying some really good stuff, stuff that I would be listening to. Um, and I had said this thing about there was the show that I had watched, and it was interesting. I kept watching it because it was like, as soon as I watched the first episode, I watched the whole show. But this first episode, as soon as I watched it, it was like, okay, this is what happens when you have a bunch of non-Christians that make a TV show with a lot of Christian overtones, right? Or biblical overtones. And it was just interesting to see what, from the perspective of the world, what the world thinks of our faith. Right. It was just interesting because it was like, this is what they think. It's a fairy tale. It's fiction. It's a fantasy epic. Right. It's a myth. That's the way they see it. A lot of people see it. And I was saying that I think that that's a lot of our fault as Christians, because sometimes we're just not good at leading by example. Right.
Well, no, because the world looks at us as Christians, and they're like, "Well, if that's a Christian, then it's
right." So sometimes we're not good at leading by example, and so that could translate into people thinking that way. And I had this analogy about, it's because it's being a Christian, we're always fighting to stay in place or to make ourselves better. And the whole time I was out there, the wind was blowing really hard, and I was fighting the wind. And I was like, being a Christian is a lot like this. You got to make these little moves here and there just to stay where you're trying to be. And so it was good. And I went across the lake to shelter a little bit from the wind, from the trees, for the trees to block the wind a little bit. And there was another guy out there, right? And he had gotten out there a good bit after I launched my kayak, right? And he was out there for maybe 30 minutes, and then he left. And as he was leaving, I said, why would he come out here for 30 minutes? I said, it's not even worth it for 30 minutes to come out here. And I said, I wouldn't even come out here for 30 minutes. I wouldn't have even launched the boat. And I had just gotten done saying that I would take every opportunity to come out here because I enjoy being in God's beautiful creation. And I had just got done saying that, and then here I am judging this guy for coming out there. Yeah. Right, and then this wasp comes down and lands on my kayak.
Oh, he hates wasps. He's allergic.
I'm allergic to him, and he comes up to me, and I take my paddle and I smack him. He's in the water. He's done. Right. On the downstroke, I hit my phone. And the phone plops in the water. Right. And instantly in my head, that voice that we talked about last week, that it's not my voice. It's in my head, but it's not my voice. It says, I'm trying to give you something, but I'll take it away if you're not going to do it right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, instantly I felt regret. It was like, why am I sitting here talking about this guy when I just said that I would do the exact same thing?
Mm-hmm.
And I would. I absolutely would. And that was just like God saying, I'm trying to give this to you, but if you're not going to do it right, I can take it away.
Yeah.
And so that was my little story of God humbling me. Not that it has anything to do with this. Judges. I guess it does in a way.
It does in a way because these people needed to be humbled. And it kind of shows that God did humble them over a period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And we're, I don't know, like I said last week, we're so fast into jumping into self, what we want.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes what we want does not follow the path of Christ. And if we're not careful, we get off that path And then that's when God has to humble us. He said, "Look, you are my child, and you know, you're not doing right, or and He'll humble us to bring us back."
Yep. But I knew that the difference is here is I knew it was wrong. I knew what I was saying was wrong,
Yeah,
and I was saying it on the camera
yeah,
of all
Yep.
things.
yeah.
And so yeah, it was like God was saying, "Hey, look, I'm trying to give you this.
You
but
lost. You lost.
I can take it away."
You lost your focus
Yep.
on
Yeah.
the things that you were trying to do
Yeah.
for God.
I was
and you put your
getting
focus on Him.
I was getting too comfortable.
Yep.
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 So Judges is kind of a cyclical story or a cyclical book where God raises up these different judges, um, and by all of these different names, he keeps bringing them up, and they keep bringing out the same outcomes. They save the Israelites, and then they die, and then the Israelites turn right back to their
Mhm.
old ways.
Yeah.
So, and ironically, the heroes of these stories are not really heroes,
Right.
right? They're people. They're people just like you and me. But the good thing is, I think that there's a lot that we can learn from these judges.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So and a lot of times they're not even good at following God themselves. So the first one, so I would love to, maybe we can do some like short episodes on each individual judge. I think that would be kind of cool. But if we were to go through every judge tonight, we're already at 27 minutes.
Yeah, you'd be here 4 or 5 hours. And
Exactly.
I doubt you'd even get it done then.
So what I'm going to do is we're just going to kind of hit a couple of these judges that I think that we can learn some really good lessons from. And then at the end, we're going to hit Samson, and we'll go from there. All right.
Sounds good.
So the first one we're going to talk about is Deborah.
Deborah.
Yep. It is a woman.
Mm.
So this is interesting because how many times in the Bible do we have a woman who is the hero?
Yeah,
of the story,
not
right?
very often. And well, I won't get into all that because that'd be all night story too.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But here's
Just leave it to that. How many times did God mention a woman actually doing something
heroic? Because there's plenty of women in the Bible, and they all do well. A lot of them do good things,
right?
But I can't bring anything to mind about another woman that does something heroic. I mean, I guess that depends on your definition of heroic. But yeah, I don't know. It's not really that important, so we're not gonna sit here and harp on it.
All right, well, let's get right on into what's going on.
But the thing is, Deborah, or I'm going to call her Deborah, she is not the person really that God intended to use as a judge. So, all right, we're in chapter 4. Deborah becomes Israel's judge. After Ehud's death, the Israelites again did evil in the Lord's sight. So the Lord turned them over to King Jabin of Hazor, a Canaanite king. The commander of his army was Sisera. Now, when I hear this name Sisera, what I think of is Cicero from not Romeo and Juliet, but from Skyrim. Yeah, who knows what I'm talking about there?
Not me.
The commander of his army was Sisera, who lived in Harosheth Hagoyim. Sisera, who had 900 iron chariots, ruthlessly oppressed the Israelites for 20 years. Then the people of Israel cried out to the Lord for help. Deborah, the wife of Lapidoth, what a name. What
Yeah, I see
names
the
people
word.
back then had.
And they probably think the same thing about us now.
Oh, yeah. Deborah, the wife of Lapidoth, was a prophet who was judging in Israel at the time. She would sit under the palm of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim. Ephraim. And the Israelites would go to her for judgment. One day she sent for Barak, son of Abinom, who lived in Kadesh, in the land of Naphtali. She said to him, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, commands you. Call out 10,000 warriors from the tribes of Naphtali and Zebulun at Mount Tabor. And I will call out Sisera, commander of Jabin's army, along with his chariots and warriors, and the Kishon River, or to the Kishon River. There I will give you victory over him." Barak told her, "I will go, but only if you go with me." "Very well," she replied. "I will go with you, but you will receive no honor in this venture, for the Lord's victory over Sisera will be at the hands of a woman." So Deborah went with Barak to Kadesh. All right. So Deborah tells Barak that the Lord wants him to, what was it? Call out 10,000 warriors from these two tribes, Naphtali and Zebulun, at Mount Tabor. And then she was to call out Sisera, the commander of Jabin's army, along with his chariots and warriors to the Kishon River. And she was going to give, or God was going to give him victory over these 10,000 chariots. And then Barak says, "No, I don't have faith in God, but I have faith in you, so I want you to come with me." It's not what he says, but that's what he says in more words, right?
Right. It's
So Deborah, until now, she was a prophet of God in Israel, right? And she was called to take part in a military campaign to overthrow the Canaanites. Even though this was new ground for her, she didn't hesitate because she trusted God. She understood that God was going to give them victory over these Canaanites. But Barak put more faith in Deborah than he did in God. And because of this lack of faith, God accomplished this task through another person, which was Deborah. And I've got here that we all have the potential to assist others in situations that have plagued us in the past. But if we don't demonstrate the courage to lead, God may not use us to help. So, when you, when you feel God calling you to do something, to talk to someone, to witness to someone, do it.
Yeah, it's. I don't know. I'm still trying to process some of this myself.
It's a lot to process. It really is.
It really is a lot to process, and for me, it's even double sometimes. But yeah, I don't know really how to say what I'm thinking. But anyway, but she had no problem telling him that he would get none of the credit.
No, because he didn't have the faith.
He didn't have the faith.
He had faith in her instead of God.
And how many people do we know now that has no faith in God, has no understanding of God? Because if they had understanding of God, they'd have more faith in Him.
Yep.
But
we as human beings, I think we put our faith in things that are consistent, right?
Well, a lot of
And
people say if I can't see it and I can't touch it or I can't taste it or I can't smell it, it don't exist.
right, that's consistency.
Right.
So if something is not consistent in our life, we're not going to put as much faith in it,
Right.
right? And this goes back
And-
to not being lukewarm,
Right.
right? You can't be a weekend Christian.
Right.
You just can't.
Right. No, it don't work. In fact, it says in here to straddle the fence is lukewarm, and I'll spit you out.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to choose a side. You can't follow that.
And I'm not saying. Oh, excuse me. I am.
We had,
Aldi,
we had
Aldi's
tacos for
tacos
supper,
and
I'm belching over
Oh, man.
myself.
so where was I going? I'm not saying that you have to go to church every weekend. You have to be.
No, everybody.
You have to be at church every Wednesday. You have to be there
No,
every Sunday morning.
No,
you have to
people
be
are
there.
you're gonna miss. It's just a known fact. You're
Yeah.
not gonna be. You're not gonna make it every Sunday.
But what I am saying is that if you make God consistent in your life, He's going to show up consistently.
Right.
And let me tell you, when God shows up, He shows out.
Oh, ain't no doubt. Ain't no doubt.
And I think that's a lot of the problem is that people believe in things that are consistent. We put our faith in things that are consistent to our lives, right?
Well,
And the people that they just don't know. Maybe they've been to church, and they've just had a bad experience and they don't want to go again because they think, oh well, all Christians are that way. When really you have to, you can't take the words of a man that says he's speaking about the Bible and put that on the Bible. You have to let the Bible speak for itself, right?
And it, I don't know, for whatever reason, it crossed my mind. People will come to church because they're in a bind. They're having trouble. They have problems. They're sick. So they say, well, let me go to church.
Mm-hmm.
And if their life doesn't get better after 2 or 3 weeks, or the problem isn't resolved, well, God's not helping me anyway, so I won't quit going.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, God's not going to help you until you put that faith into Him, and you put the trust into Him,
Mm-hmm.
and you've got to be, what's the word I'm looking for?
He's going to be patient with you, so I think that's the least that we owe Him is to be patient with Him.
As the old saying is, God's time is not our time.
Exactly.
So just because you want something today, that doesn't mean you're going to get it today.
Yep.
You pray to God. You be consistent about it. You be headstrong about it. Don't give up on it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my mom, she was a prayer warrior. Now, you tell her, hey, I want you to pray about something for me, and that woman would not quit until she seen it happen. So
Yep.
she was loyal. She wouldn't. She said, no, just because God hasn't answered it doesn't mean He's not listening to me every time I pray to Him. And His time's not our time. So whenever it's right, when the time's right, He'll strike.
Yep.
And I've learned to believe that, and I've seen it. So, but a lot of people are like that. They, okay, if you ain't gonna do it for me now, then I just don't have no time for you.
Yep. And then this just came to my mind in the last episode. we kept saying that we would thank God for unanswered prayers, and that's really not even true because God always answers our prayers.
Well, yeah, it may not be
Right.
the way we want it, but He will answer.
As far as I'm concerned, you can get one of three answers. You can get yes, you can get no, or you can get not right now.
Yeah, wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, wait. And I agree with you 100%. That's the only three answers you're going to get from God.
Yeah. But and this kind of goes back to something I said. I think I said in an earlier podcast. Just because you're not seeing instant results from your prayer doesn't mean that God's not answering it, and it doesn't mean that He's not going to say yes, right? So for instance, if you say, all right, I want to run a Fortune 500 business, right?
Okay.
I want to own and run this big business, right? And you pray about it to God, and God says, okay, I'm going to let you do that. All right. He's not just going to give you this Fortune 500
No,
business.
no.
Right?
No, he's not going to
Because God being our Father that he is, he not only wants us to have those things if it's his will, he not only wants us to have those things, he wants us to understand what it is to have those things. So he might give you might have 5 failed businesses before that one idea hits. And then bam, overnight you might have a Fortune 500 business, right?
Well, that's true.
If you're praying to God that you want to just in general be a great man, right? Or a great woman. He's going to have to put you through things that are going to make you that great person.
Absolutely, because
And one more way to put this, if you are asking God to help you through a financial situation or something, right? And God says, "Okay, I'm going to make him a millionaire." All right? This is just a for instance, all right? God says, "I want to make him a millionaire." But I'm not going to give him $1 million right off the bat, right? I want he may see that you need to be on the streets without a penny in your bank account, so that when you get that $1 million, you understand what it means to have that $1 million.
You appreciate it. It's
if that makes sense to anybody.
in my little feeble brain, it does. But yes, you're exactly right. He's not. And how do you say that? Okay, God says, okay, you want $1 million, but I already know the future, and if I give you that $1 million, you're not going to be the same person you are. This loving, friendly, giving person that you are, you'll change, and you'll become somebody that doesn't need me anymore, because you can buy your way through things.
Yeah,
and God knows that, and He may say, okay, you're I can do this, and you will stay with me.
Yeah. In other words, God will give you the vision of the end goal.
Right. He knows the end goal, and He knows
He will give you that vision. He'll put on your heart that that's where you want to be. But He's not going to tell you how to get there.
Right.
Because the only way you get there is through faith.
If you stay on track with God, He will continue to.
Exactly. The only way you get there is through faith, and that's between you and God.
Right.
Right. So just have faith. Faith is one of those gifts that I think that we can all possess, but it's one of those gifts that you can't just have. You have to exercise it.
I was going to say, speaking on faith, and I know we're getting away from what we're supposed to be talking about.
Not really.
But I had a guy ask me one time, he said, how can I love somebody I've never seen or met? Okay, I love Jesus Christ with all my heart. And he couldn't understand that. I said, I don't know how to explain it. I really don't. But once you're touched, God touches you, and once you start following Him and you start seeing what He's actually doing, and then you actually understand what Jesus Christ did for you, you can't help but to love Him.
Yep.
It's like when I accepted Jesus Christ, I fell in love with Him. Now I accepted Him at 13, and yes, that love has grown over the years as I learned more about what true love really is. Now, a lot of people have these little flash loves, which I like to call it, and but true love, when you understand what true love is, then you can love Jesus Christ for what He did for us, and understand. I even had a guy tell me, "Well, He didn't do nothing for me." Oh man, that hurt my heart. It really did. To not understand or believe that Jesus did anything for us. So let that sink in a little bit. Think about that. Jesus Christ did the only thing that saved us.
Yeah. that kind of goes back to what we said last week. Pray that God will open your eyes.
Open your eyes, open your
Open
heart,
your eyes so that you can see.
open your heart.
Open your eyes so that you can see Him, and open your heart so that you can receive Him.
Right.
Yeah, that's all I really have to
Because-
say on that right now.
Because now, everywhere I look, I see Jesus.
Mhm.
Because there's nothing in this creative world that could have ever been here without him.
Once you see the glory of God, you see it in everything.
As the old saying is, once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Yeah, you see it once you finally see it in one aspect, you see it everywhere.
Exactly.
All right, now.
All right, now back to
So that's all I'm going to talk about on Deborah or Deborah.
Deborah.
That's all we're going to talk about there. Just know that have faith, right?
And that's hard to do sometimes.
It
but
is. That's why.
that's why you have, like
That's
you
why I
said,
said you have to exercise
have
it.
to
Like we
exercise
said last week,
you got to
as
exercise it.
just as gold must be melted to
Mhm.
get all the impurities out, sometimes we have to go through struggles to
To filter our hearts.
filter ourselves.
Yeah.
And I've got all the notes here still, so we can go back through Jonah. You want to go back to Jonah?
Oh, let's not do that. Let's not do that.
So the next one that we're gonna talk about is Gideon, and then I think we're gonna go into Samson, because believe it or not, you're not gonna do this in an hour.
I was gonna say, when you said that,
We might get in an hour and a half. I'm trying to
Oh.
get some of these to be a little shorter. And that might be a good idea to go through and do all of these judges, because I think there's some good things that we can learn from all of them. And I
Well,
think that we could
now-
do one, an episode on each one in an hour or so. That's something we can talk about later, though.
It just crossed my mind that we want to keep them shorter, but maybe God don't want us to,
Well, that's true.
and that's why we can't do it.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. It's look, when I start talking, look, I've talked about several things tonight already that's not in my notes. And every time that I go through and I say, all right, I'm going to study tonight, I always pray before I study, and I say, God, let me see it clearly, and let me see what you want me to talk about, and I want you to bless this study session.
Right.
And every single time, like I said, God shows up and He shows out.
Oh yeah. But this is just like our church. We don't have any guidelines.
Yeah.
We might be there for 30 minutes. We might be there for 3 hours.
Yeah.
We never know.
Yeah.
Like today, we didn't.
It was
get out.
almost 2 hours today.
It was almost 2 hours today.
Yep.
And this is not Bible school. I mean, this is not Sunday school.
Mm-mm.
This is actual service. But our service is totally different than most.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'll leave it there.
All right, so we're going to go to Gideon, and that is chapter 6 is where it starts. And I did the thing again where I write my notes and I don't have anything about where we're talking about this. I think Gideon is a pretty short 1,700 pages, maybe.
You get to talk about God and His glory, and you forget about time.
Yeah. All right, so let's start.
Bye.
Let's start in chapter 6. Gideon. The Israelites did evil in the Lord's sight, so the Lord handed them over to the Midianites for 7 years. All right, so the last one they did 20 years. This time it was 7 years. The Midianites were so cruel that the Israelites had hiding places for themselves in the mountain caves and strongholds. Wherever the Israelites planted their crops, marauders from Midian, Amalek, and the people of the east would attack Israel, camping in the land and destroying crops as far away as Gaza. There's a name we hear a lot today.
Yeah.
They left the Israelites with nothing to eat, taking all the sheep, goat, cattle, and donkeys. These enemy hordes, coming with their livestock and tents, were as thick as locusts. I'm having a hard time. I'm so sleepy.
Oh,
Honestly.
yeah, we have both been fighting sleep all day.
They were as thick as locusts. They arrived on droves of camels, too numerous to count, and they stayed until the land was stripped bare. So Israel was reduced to starvation by the Midianites. Then the Israelites cried out to the Lord for help. Are we seeing a pattern here?
Mm-hmm.
When they
Yep.
cried out to the Lord because of Midian, the Lord sent a prophet. Yep. The Lord sent a prophet to the Israelites. He said, "This is what the Lord God of Israel says. I brought you up out of slavery in Egypt. I rescued you from the Egyptians and from all who oppressed you. I drove out your enemies and gave you their land. I told you, I am the Lord your God. You must not worship gods of the Amorites, in whose land you now live, but you have not listened to me." Then the angel of the Lord came and sat beneath the great tree at Ophrah, which belonged to Joash, the clan of Bezer. Gideon, son of Joash, was threshing wheat at the bottom of the winepress to hide the grain from the Midianites. Can you imagine that? Threshing wheat at the bottom of the winepress just to hide it from the Midianites.
Yeah.
The angel of the Lord appeared to him and said, "Mighty hero, the Lord is with you." All right, remember this. The Lord is with you. Mighty hero. "Sir," Gideon replied, "if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us? And where are the miracles our ancestors told us about? Didn't they say, 'The Lord brought us up out of Egypt, but now the Lord has abandoned us and handed us over to the Midianites'?" Mm-hmm. All right, we're going to keep going just because I want
No, I got so much to say right there, but I'm
to.
gonna keep my mouth shut.
I do too.
Oh.
Then the Lord turned to him and said, Go with the strength you have, and rescue Israel from the Midianites. I am sending you." "But Lord," Gideon replied, "how can I rescue Israel? My clan is the weakest in the whole tribe of Manasseh, and I am the least in my entire family." The Lord said to him, "I will be with you, and you will destroy the Midianites as if you were fighting against one man." Gideon replied, "If you are truly going to help me, show me a sign to prove that it is really the Lord speaking to me. Don't go away until I come back and bring my offering to you." He answered, "I will stay here until you return." Gideon hurried home. He cooked a young goat with a basket, and with a basket of flour he baked some bread without yeast. Then, carrying the meat in a basket and the broth in a pot, he brought them out and presented them to the angel who was under the great tree. The angel of God said to him, "Place the meat and the unleavened bread on this rock."
What verse are you on?
Let's see.
I've lost track because I was reading something.
I'm about halfway through 20.
Gotcha.
And pour the broth over it. And Gideon did what he was told. 21.
Gotcha.
And then the angel of the Lord touched the meat and bread with the tip of the staff in his hand. And the fire flamed up from the rock and consumed all he had brought. And the angel of the Lord disappeared. When Gideon realized that it was the angel of the Lord, he cried out, "O sovereign Lord, I am doomed. I have seen the angel of the Lord face to face." "It is all right," the Lord said, or the Lord replied. "Do not be afraid, you will not die." And Gideon built an altar to the Lord there and named it Yahweh Shalom, which means the Lord is peace. The altar remains in Ophrah, in the land of the clan of Abizer to this day. All right. So this goes to show that even if we ask for signs, just even if it's kind of selfish of us, doesn't mean that God's not going to give us a sign.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that we should be doing it. Right.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit last week about asking for signs or either just looking for the signs that are already there.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to agree to disagree a little bit on that one. I agree 100%. Signs are around us all the time, but sometimes I think we just, as humans, God, show me just the one that I'm actually looking for now. And He will. He will.
That doesn't mean that we should be doing that, though.
Well, maybe we shouldn't. Maybe that shows weakness or a lack of faith or whatever, or just saying, God, I know you guys, I know you're doing this for me, but I mean, even now, uh, and I revert back to my grandchildren all the time. Even though you're doing what they ask you to do, they're still asking, and I think sometimes we're the same way with our Father.
Mm-hmm.
So, but
All right. Let's go down to verse 25. I think that's where I left off, but um, this is one of the points I want to hit. That night, the Lord said to Gideon, "Take the second bull from your father's herd, the one that is 7 years old. Pull down your father's altar to Baal and cut down the Asherah pole standing beside it. Then build an altar to the Lord your God here on this hilltop sanctuary, laying the stones carefully. Sacrifice the bull as a burnt offering on the altar, using as fuel the wood of the Asherah pole you cut down." So Gideon took 10 of his servants and did as the Lord had commanded. But he did it at night because he was afraid of the other members of his father's household and the people of the town. Early the next morning, the people of the town began to stir. Someone discovered that the altar of Baal had been broken down and the Asherah pole beside it had been cut down. In their place, a new altar had been built, and on it were the remains of the bull that had been sacrificed. And the people said to each other, "Who did this?" And after asking around and making a careful search, they learned that it was Gideon, the son of Joash. "Bring out your son," the men of the town demanded for Joash. "He must die for destroying the altar of Baal and for cutting down the Asherah pole." But Joash shouted to the mob and confronted him. "Why are you defending Baal? Will you argue his case? Whoever pleads his case will be put to death by morning. If Baal truly is a god, let him defend himself and destroy the one who broke his altar." From then on, Gideon was called Jerubbaal, which means "let Baal defend himself," because he broke down Baal's altar. All right. So, first thing I want to touch on is at the very beginning. The angel of the Lord says, "Mighty hero, the Lord is with you."
mm-hmm.
Right? And then Gideon says, "If the Lord's with me, then why has all this happened to me? Where's all these miracles that my ancestors talked about?"
That's what I was talking about a while ago.
Yeah, I mean,
If he's here, if he's true, why is this happening, or why is it not happening?
yeah.
Well, here
And
it is.
this is a common thing in with Gideon. He seems to lack faith as well.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of get it because of what they're growing up in, right?
Mm-hmm.
They worship Baal and they have the Asherah poles, which I should have researched, but I didn't. So I'm not really that familiar with the Asherah poles. Maybe if we do what I was talking about with Judges, then I'll
go more into detail.
go into that. Yeah. But at the same time, the miracles and things that his ancestors talked about, the reason they weren't happening is because they weren't following God, right?
Yep.
So you can kind of see it, but at the same time, it's like, well, why would you expect God to do anything if you don't have any kind of relationship with him?
Yeah.
Right?
If you're not going to have anything to do with him, why do you think he's going to have something to do with you?
Yeah. I'm not going to go to a stranger on the side of the road or in Walmart and say, "Hey, man, I need $20."
Yeah.
They're just going to look at me like, "Are
Yeah.
you okay?
Yeah.
Do I need to help you? Do you know your way home?" Right?
I'd have to be real desperate for something like that.
Yeah.
But
That's what I'm saying. It's kind of like that. If you don't have a relationship with God, why? if you're not trying to have a relationship with God, why is He going to perform miracles for you? You know,
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. And you touched on it.
especially on command like that, right?
You said a while ago one of them had asked, why do we not see miracles now?
No, we
Uh,
do every single day.
yeah, but um, whoever in here was asking that. But I did have somebody ask me that a while back, and I said, man, I don't understand why you're asking that question, because if you're not seeing miracles, you're not looking.
We literally die for 8 hours every night, and then we wake up in the morning.
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
mean,
Our minds come. Yeah, we are really. If you don't know what sleep really is, do a little research. Sleep is where your body shuts down, and you get down really close to death. If you've had surgery before, did you understand the fact that when that guy puts you under, he puts you as close to death as he can possibly do without you dying? So there's no such thing as a minor surgery. Anytime you're put to sleep, you're just right there at death. That's where they hold you. So thank your anesthesiologist next time you see him, because he literally has your life in his hands. I know the surgeon does a lot of times, but even like a minor surgery, like a shoulder surgery, that's not life threatening. But the man that was putting me under for that's life threatening, because he had to control whether I woke up or not. So think about that.
So let's skip ahead a little bit. So
yeah, even sleep and waking up is a miracle every morning.
so basically, the Midianite armies are kind of for the Midianite armies and the Amalek people and the people of the east. They form an alliance against Israel. They cross over the Jordan, camp in the valley, and God tells Gideon, blow your ram's horn and call all the men, basically all of the men to come, and we're going to fight these people, right? And then Gideon says in verse 36, then Gideon said to God, if you are truly going to use me to rescue Israel as you promised, prove it to me in this way. I will put a wool fleece in the threshing floor tonight. If the fleece is wet with dew in the morning, but the ground is dry, then I will know that you're going to help me rescue Israel as you promised. And that is just what happened. When Gideon got up early in the next morning, he squeezed the fleece and wrung out a whole bowl full of water. Then Gideon said to God, please don't be angry with me, but let me make one more request. Let me use the fleece for one more test. This time the fleece will remain dry while the ground around it is wet with dew. So that night God did as Gideon asked. The fleece was dry in the morning, but the ground was covered with dew. All right. So here it took courage for Gideon to tear down the temple, right? Tear down the temple and the Asherah pole, right? But at the same time, fear limited him to tearing it down at night, because he was scared of the other people in his household, and he was scared of what the other people of the town would have to say about it, right? And it even took it took courage for him to even to build the new temple to God, right? But again, he did it at night because he was scared. So basically, he was questioning God's leadership, just as we see with the fleece. God does exactly what he asked, what Gideon asked him to do with the fleece, and then Gideon says, "Okay, so now you did this. I'm gonna need you to do this so that I know that you meant this first thing, right?" Um,
Yeah, that was kind of like saying, "Okay, God, it happened.
yeah,
I wrung water out of it, and the ground was dry, but I still don't trust you.
yeah.
Uh,
They said so.
give me another
So
sign."
so it was the first night. The fleece was. He asked for the fleece to be wet with
Wet and the
dew,
ground be dry.
and the ground be dry.
Yeah,
And then the second
and
night
then it
he
said
asked for
had to
the
squeeze
ground
right,
to be wet with dew and for the fleece to be dry.
but the first one wasn't enough for him. He needed more.
Right.
So,
Right. Basically, he was
okay,
saying,
God, you did show me, but you know what? Show me again to be sure.
"Yeah, do it again so that I know you
Okay.
really meant it."
Yeah, so yeah, I was trying to look at
Um,
what an astral pole is.
Ash
And
Ashra pole.
yeah, but I don't know some big words here I don't understand. But
Yeah.
basically, it's a pole that is erected uh, near the Canaanite religious sites in honor of godness.
Yeah. So just to make this,
I don't anyway.
just to make this a little bit quicker, as I said, I encourage everybody to read through Judges because it really is good. It's gold. There's gold in here. But basically, what happens is he calls all the people, all the men, and he ends up with 22,000 people to go fight these Midianite soldiers. The Midianites, the Amalek, and the people of the east, right? Who had all formed an alliance against Israel.
That's a lot of soldiers.
It's 22,000. Wait, no, hold on. I'm wrong.
Excuse me. I'm still tasting that taco.
Let's see. It doesn't say, but so it was 32,000. 32,000 men. But God basically says, look, I'm not going to let all of these people go. I'm not going to let all these people go with you, because if all of these people go with you to fight the Midianites, then the people of Israel are going to say, look at what we did.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to give God the glory, because 32,000 men going to fight, it's not a miraculous thing, right?
Yeah, more like a not manslaughter, more of a massacre.
Yeah. Which you have to remember, it says that just this one guy had.
To God, you didn't do it. We just had enough soldiers.
Oh no, that was the other. That was the other story. Never mind. So basically, God says, you're not going to take all of these men, because if you take all of these men, Israelites are going to say, look, we saved ourselves by our own strength, So he says, tell all the people, whoever's timid or afraid, that they can leave. 22,000 left and went home, so that left him with 10,000 people, 10,000 men. And then God said, Gideon, there's still too many people. All right. He says, so take them down to the spring, and I'll test them to determine who's going to go with you and who's not going to go with you. He says, when you get them down there,
Yep. Bless you.
He says, when you get them down there, divide them into two groups, right?
Bless you twice.
Oh, excuse me. He says, divide them into two groups. In one group, put all of those who cup water in their hands and lap it up with their tongues like dogs, right? In the other group, put all of those who kneel down and drink with their mouths in the stream. It says only 300 men drank from their hands, and all the others got down on their knees and drank with their mouths in the stream. So God says, these are the 300 men that I will rescue you and give you victory over the Midianites with.
Hmm.
He says, send all the other ones home. So he got collected the provisions and the ram's horns of the other people and sent them home, but he kept the 300 men with him. Right.
That's a big difference from 32,000.
Yeah, 32,000 to 300.
Down to 300.
So they were already still outnumbered by the
Mhm.
Midianites. But God said, no, you're not taking all these people. Only 300 people went out to fight the Midianites. And God wanted to show Israel that his power is always going to be sufficient. I mean, we read that with David and Goliath.
Yep.
This little boy
Mm-hmm.
or young man, I mean, he was, what we say, 15, 16.
Yeah, in his teens.
Goes out to fight this, what was he, 9'10" or 10'9"? I think it was 10'9". I don't remember exactly.
It was one
now.
of the two. Big boy.
10'9". He's wearing all this armor. He's strong, and this little boy goes out there with a
slingshot
piece of leather.
Well, yeah, not even a slingshot. Well, they called it a slingshot then, but
they call it a sling.
Or sling.
A piece of leather, essentially.
Right.
And a few rocks.
What was it? Three
five.
Shiny pebbles or five shiny? Five. It might have been 5 shiny pebbles.
From the brook.
Yeah, or stones from the brook. Yeah, smooth stones. I believe it was.
And not only did he go down to fight this huge man, he says, "Today is the day that God will use me to slay you."
Yeah, yeah. This walked right up to him like that. You know, it's no fear whatsoever. Today's the day.
Yeah,
you're going down, buddy.
So I mean, we saw it there. We see it here. It's amazing how much can be accomplished with such few resources, and a commitment to God's will.
Yeah, if God was backing this and he said, "I'm going to do it," he could have sent 10 men out here.
Yep. When we surrender our lives to God each day, we know we can accomplish so much more for the kingdom.
Oh, yeah.
It's all in surrendering. Surrender to God's will.
It's in rendering to God's will. And we've got a friend that does Hot Wheels for Christ. I'm just going to say this real quick, and I'll hush. I promise.
No, go for it. Hopefully, we'll have him on.
We hope to have him on here one day. But he does Hot Wheels for Christ. And what he does, he puts a couple of Hot Wheels, and there's a backstory, and I'll wait and let him do that if we never get him on here. But anyway, he puts 2 Hot Wheels in a bag, and he puts literature, and it's in English and Spanish, and it's tracks on a kid's level as to how to accept Christ. And they put pencils and notepads and all kinds of stuff in these things, and they just pass them out to kids. Any kid that's willing to accept it. Well, we were supposed to have a yard sale a couple of weeks ago, and we got rained out. But anyway, I had asked him if he had a couple of bags that I could pass out during the yard sale. And he gave me 25. That's what he had made up at that point because they were just fixing to leave out. And he had like 300 or 400 bags, I think, packed up or something. And I said, that's fine. I said, because there probably won't be that many kids there anyway, so 25 would be plenty. But we got rained out. But we actually had that yard sale yesterday. And here's how God works. The first child comes up, and I didn't even think about the bags laying there. And my wife said, are you going to give him, it was a little boy, one of the bags? I said, oh, my goodness, God, forgive me. Yes, I'm going to give him a bag. I went and got the bag, and I went to him, and his father was with him. I said, is it okay if I give your child a gift? And he said, yes, absolutely. I said, these are Hot Wheels for Christ. I said, there's a little track in it. And he and his dad both were just overwhelmed that I was giving them something, giving his son something, and they just couldn't thank me enough. Well, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes went by. Here come a couple more kids. So I grab a couple of bags and I do the same thing. I ask the parents, is it okay if I give your child a gift?
Mm.
And absolutely, yes, sir. And I tell them what it is, two Hot Wheels, da 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 da. And they were overwhelmed. They just couldn't thank me enough for giving their children a gift. Well, next thing I know, the 25 bags are gone.
Mm.
And I've got kids coming to me and saying, "Sir, do you have another bag?" And I had to look at them and say, "I'm sorry, I don't. I've already given them all out." But the thrill of some of the parents
Mm.
that could not believe I was giving their child a free gift of two Hot Wheels. And along with the presentation, I explained to them part of why there was two Hot Wheels instead of one.
Mm.
And I'll wait and let him go on to that a little bit. But it's Hot Wheels because it's one of the top grade toys.
Mm.
In fact, well, I'm gonna let him go through all the
Everybody
statistics.
likes Hot Wheels.
I'm gonna let him go through all the statistics. Anyway, he's been questioned. If you do something for God, people are going to question you. Why are you doing Hot Wheels just for boys? Well, I'm not. I'm giving them to the girls too. Well, why not something else? Statistics. If you go on and you look at statistics at the top number of toys being bought for boys and girls, Hot Wheels.
I can believe it because
even girls, Hot Wheels is their number one toy.
Yeah. Every kid loves Hot Wheels, right?
Absolutely.
For one. And for two, it's something if you go into, a parent takes their kid into a store and they want to get something all the time.
Right.
Kids always want to get a toy.
Absolutely, always.
And Hot Wheels are cheap.
Are cheap.
Yeah.
At Walmart, they're $1.18.
And every
And
kid
they
loves
last.
Hot Wheels.
And they last forever.
Yeah.
Well, you can see I love Hot Wheels. I mean, I love them.
Yeah.
And
we gotta get this place painted and get some of my stuff in here.
Yeah,
I've got some really cool sports memorabilia and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
And some I like the Pokemons, right?
Oh yeah.
So
He's big on Pokemon.
I got a lot of Pokemon stuff we can put
He's
in
got
here
my
and
grandson,
stuff.
his nephew
Yeah.
hung on Pokemon.
Yeah.
And he's just tell you how much he loves my Hot Wheels collection. I told him one day that this would be his collection unless he ever had a brother, and then he'd have to split them. And when his when this last baby come along, and she's 6 months old, the first thing that come out of his mouth when he found out that it was a girl, I don't have to share my Hot Wheels. I thought that was so funny.
Yeah.
He was scared to death if he had a little brother. He's going to have to share him.
So obviously,
okay,
God uses Gideon to win to save the Israelites from the Midianites and the Amaleks and the people from the east. Right. But I think that this victory. So, actually, I should have been looking at this while you were talking, but, so basically, God tells them, "Look, if you don't believe that this is going to work, go down and listen to what these people are talking about." And they're talking about a dream, and they're saying the Midianites are saying, "Oh goodness, this dream means that they're going to have victory over us," and all of this, and so basically, let's see. Gideon.
While he's finding that, just a quick word. You talk about a blessing. Do something for God. Like just handing out those little Hot Wheels. It was such a blessing to my heart. Just overwhelming. And I wanted to cry when they come ask me, and I didn't have it anymore.
Oh yes. So So basically, God said, the 300 men, they all had positions around the enemy camp, the Midianites camp. And then, let's see, it says, okay, I don't remember. It's at night, right? It says midnight. Yeah, it was just after midnight, after the changing of the guard. And so, they all 300 of them start blowing their ram's horn, and breaking pots. And it says, the Lord caused the warriors in the camp to fight against each other with their swords. And those who were not killed fled to places as far away as Beth Shittah near Zerara. Yeah. And to the border of Abel Machlah near Tabbath. So what this means to me, this victory reminds us that God, the God we serve, has the power to destroy and confuse any opposing force that comes against us.
Mhm.
We do not have to have the power to directly confront those who oppose our spiritual growth. Our job is to follow God's instruction. And guess what? In the end, we win.
We win. We win. We might get
God
beat, we might get
wins.
beat down a time or two, but we're going to win.
Yep,
We might lose a battle here and there, but we're going to win the war.
absolutely.
And that's kind of what I was saying a while ago. I don't want to get into politics or anything like that, but we need to look at what's happening around us now, because a lot of people in the United States have turned their back on God.
Yeah.
And I mean, even our leaders, I hate to say it, our leaders show, to me, no Christianity at all. And as a nation that's not led or not protected by God, we're in trouble.
Mm-hmm. All right, so that's all we're going to talk about. There's a little bit more that goes into Gideon. Like I said, if this is something that you guys want, let us know, and we will go through. I will do a deep dive into every single judge, and we'll try to keep it short and do shorter episodes.
Try.
Yeah, we're at an hour and 23, and we're just now getting into Samson.
Yeah, so I said.
All right, so starting in chapter 13, we start with the birth of Samson. So, again, the Israelites did evil in the Lord's sight. Here comes that tale as old as time. Again, the Israelites did evil in the Lord's sight. So the Lord handed them over to the Philistines, who oppressed them for 40 years.
40 years. That's tough.
40 years. In those days, a man named Manoah from the tribe of Dan lived in the town of Zorah. Now, all these people have all these weird names, and these people are from the tribe of Dan.
Yeah.
His wife was unable to become pregnant, and they had no children. And the angel of the Lord appeared to Manoah's wife and said, even though you have been unable to have children, you will soon become pregnant and you will give birth to a son. So be careful. You must not drink wine or any other alcoholic drink, nor eat any forbidden food. You will become pregnant and give birth to a son, and his hair must never be cut. For he will be dedicated to God as a Nazirite from birth. He will begin to rescue Israel from the Philistines. The woman ran and told her husband, a man of God appeared to me. He looked like one of God's angels, terrifying to see. I didn't ask where he was from, but he didn't tell me his name. But he told me, you will become pregnant and give birth to a son. You must not drink wine or any other alcoholic drink, nor eat any forbidden food, for your son will be dedicated to God as a Nazirite. From this moment, from the moment of his birth until the day of his death. So, I find this interesting because when we think of angels, we think of humans with wings,
Yeah.
Pretty much.
That's our interpretation.
right? Well, if you know anything, if you know anything about angels, the angels of the Bible, that is not.
That is nowhere near. They are.
Now maybe they can appear that way.
Oh, I'm sure
right?
they could. But,
And there's different. Oh man, there's different
when she
types
said-
of angels and all of this, but she says, yeah,
she was terrified.
she
or
says,
scared.
where
was that at?
Blah 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 blah.
Because a man of God appeared once. Angels. Well, my Bible.
He looked like one of God's angels, terrifying to see.
Yeah, this one doesn't even say that. This just says he was awesome.
Right.
Appearance of God, very awesome.
Hmm.
So I did not ask him where he came from or what his name. But he said to me, "Behold, you shall conceive and give birth to a son."
Mm-hmm. So and then Manoah prayed to the Lord, saying, "Lord, please let the man of God come back to us again and give us more instruction about this son who is to be born." God answered Manoah's prayer, and the angel of God appeared once again to his wife as she was sitting in the field. But her husband, Manoah, was not with her. So she quickly ran and told her husband, "The man who appeared to me the other day is here again." Manoah ran back with his wife and asked, "Are you the man who spoke to my wife the other day?" "Yes," he replied, "I am." So Manoah asked him, "When your words come true, what kind of rules should govern the boy's life and work?" The angel of the Lord replied, "Be sure your wife follows the instruction that I gave her. She must not eat grapes or raisins, drink any wine or any other alcoholic drink, or eat any forbidden food." And Manoah said to the angel of the Lord, "Please stay here until we can prepare a young goat for you to eat." "I will stay," the angel of the Lord replied, "but I will not eat anything. However, you may prepare a burnt offering as a sacrifice to the Lord." Manoah didn't realize it was the angel of the Lord. So Manoah is going to prepare this person a feast because he doesn't realize it's an angel, and the angels don't eat.
Angels don't eat. No.
So that's when the angel says, "I'll stay, but I'm not going to eat anything. But you can prepare a sacrifice, prepare a burnt offering as a sacrifice to the Lord." So that's not the first time we've seen that happen
Mm-mm.
within the stories of the judges, right?
Right.
That's in fact that's the third time we've seen that, right?
Just what we've looked at. Yeah.
Yeah. So he made an offering. I'm trying to make sure I don't miss anything good here. Let's see. he made an offering, and the Lord did an amazing thing. As the flames from the altar shot up towards the sky, the angel of the Lord ascended in the fire. When Manoah and his wife saw this, they fell with their faces to the ground. The angel did not appear again to Manoah and his wife. And they finally realized it was the angel of the Lord. And he said to his wife, "We will certainly die, for we have seen God." And then his wife says, if God were going to kill us, he wouldn't have accepted our burnt offering and grain offering. He wouldn't have appeared to us, and he wouldn't have told us the wonderful thing he's done, and done these miracles. So when her son was born, they named him Samson. The Lord blessed him as he grew up, and the Spirit of the Lord began to stir him while he lived in Maneah Dan, which is located between the towns of Zorah and Eshtel. All right.
Now, in this book, in my Bible,
Mhm.
back to verse 18, it says, "But the angel of the Lord said to him, Why do you ask me my name?" Because he had asked again, "What is your name?" And he said, "For it is
Too
wonderful."
wonderful for you to understand.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
what this one says, "For it is wonderful."
Right.
Now,
Yeah.
I have heard of in the Bible other angels calling themselves wonderful.
I don't know. I'm not familiar with that.
I'm sure I have. I'm sure I have read it somewhere else.
You may
An
have. I'm
angel
just not familiar.
referred to himself as wonderful.
Right.
Now I don't know if whether that meant his name was wonderful or if he was wonderful.
Right.
Angels, I don't know which. But
And then we've got let's see. 13. Okay, yeah. So well, let's read 14. One day when Samson was in Timnah, one of the Philistine women caught his eye. When he returned home, he told his father and mother, "A young Philistine woman in Timnah caught my eye. I want to marry her. Get her for me." His father and mother objected. "Isn't there even one woman in our tribe or among all the Israelites you could marry?" They asked. Why must you go to the pagan Philistines and find a wife?" But Samson told his father, "Get her for me. She looks good to me." His father and mother didn't realize the Lord was at work in this, creating an opportunity to work against the Philistines who ruled over Israel at this time. So I think that in these verses, it shows us that Samson was living proof that even those who grow up in a godly home still need to depend on God.
mm-hmm.
Because as we'll find out, this is Samson's weakness. Pagan women.
Mm-hmm.
This is Samson's weakness. And unfortunately, Samson doesn't understand. He doesn't understand that his.
He doesn't understand his role.
No, he doesn't understand that his unhealthy attraction to be a point of weakness.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Hold on. You can talk.
Okay. But yeah, talking about Samson. I think a lot of times a weakness comes from many different areas uh, in us. We Now Samson says he looked upon this girl and he liked her. He wanted her, and I'm trying to keep this as clean as possible. But sometimes we have desires in life that take our eyes off of what we should be on. Um, and when I say that, okay, Samson seen this woman that will eventually bring him down. Uh, Anything in our life can bring us down if we're not careful. Because it's like God says, "Don't put any other gods before me." And we say, "Okay, we don't. We go to church on Sunday and we pray to God." Da, da, da. Okay, but what is what you really focus on all the time? That is your God. Whether it be, oh, I make good money. I got to work some overtime so I can make some extra money so I can have a little bit more, and so I can have a little bit more. I want that boat. I want this, this or that, or I want a better car. I want to. Okay, your mind is on that instead of God. Will you please provide me what I need?
Yep.
Now I've got a boat. Don't get me wrong. I got a boat. But instead of a $13,000 boat or a $20,000 boat that's going to keep me in debt and keep me off of the mind of God, I got an $800 boat that floats in the water just like every other boat does. So, and I don't thrive on that. That's not my love in life. Yes, I do love to fish. Don't get me wrong. I love to fish. But when I go fishing, I don't care if I catch a fish or not. I'm sitting on the water. It's peaceful, and I'm talking to my God. Now, if I catch a fish, trust me, it's thank you, Jesus, for that extra blessing. But 99% of the time, when I'm on the water on my boat, I'm talking to God. So anyway, back to Samson.
Yeah. I don't know what Mama's in there doing, but she's not watching the dogs.
No, it's probably sleeping.
No, she's not in there. I don't know where she's at. All right, so verse 5. Chapter 14, verse 5. As Samson and his parents were going down to Timnah, a young lion suddenly attacked Samson near the vineyards of Timnah. At that moment, the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him, and he ripped the lion's jaws apart with his bare hands. He did it as easily as if it were a young goat. But he didn't tell his father or mother about it. When Samson arrived in Timnah, he talked with the woman and was very pleased with her. Later, when he returned to Timnah for the wedding, he turned off the path to look at the carcass of the lion. He found that a swarm of bees had made some honey in the carcass. He scooped some of the honey into his hands and ate it along the way. He also gave some to his father and mother, and they ate it. But he didn't tell him that he had taken the honey from the carcass of the lion. Now, I just imagine Samson coming up to his parents with a handful of honey and says, "Here you go."
Well, not only that, but how long was he gone? Bees don't make honey overnight.
They make it pretty quick.
Yeah,
So I don't know.
I understand that, but to scoop up a handful. First of all, the bees got to find the carcass. Then they got to decide, okay, this is where we want our home.
Yeah, inside of
and
a
trust
lion.
me,
That's not normally where they would build a.
My oldest son is actually a beekeeper, and I have learned so much about bees in the last year.
They're amazing
Oh,
animals.
there are amazing animals. Bees are honeybees. They are amazing animals. So smart too. But to learn how long it takes, because he's caught 3 swarms this year. If you don't know what a swarm is, you have to just look it up because I'm not going in all that detail. But in order for a swarm of bees to decide where they're going to stay could take weeks, because they will scout a place out. He put swarm boxes up, and we watched them. The bees would check that box out for 3 weeks or a month, maybe even 6 weeks, before they ever decided, okay, we're going to bring our queen and we're going to start building. So how long was Samson gone?
It just
Not
says
only that,
when
but-
he late. It just says later when he came back.
But even, I mean, the lion's carcass would have to decay so the bees could get in there to build the honey.
Yeah, you would think so. Yeah,
So
I don't know.
anyway, it's an interesting thought.
I don't know.
Go ahead.
As his father was making the final arrangements for the marriage, Samson threw a party at Timnah, and it was custom for the elite young men when the brides, as was custom for the elite young men. When the bride's parents saw him, they selected 30 young men from the town to be his companions. Samson said to them, "Let me tell you a riddle. If you solve my riddle during these 7 days of celebration, I will give you 35 linen robes and 30 sets of festive clothing. But if you can't solve it, then you must give me 30 fine linen robes and 30 sets of festive clothing." "All right," they agreed. "Let's hear your riddle." So he said, "Out of one who eats came something to eat. Out of the strong came something sweet." So this is his riddle. 3 days later, they were still trying to figure it out. On the 14th day, they said to Samson's wife, "Entice your husband to explain the riddle for us, or we will burn down your father's house with you in it." It's a little excessive.
Yeah, yeah.
"Did you invite us to this party just to make us poor?" So Samson's wife came to him in tears and said, "You don't love me. You hate me. You have given my people a riddle, but you haven't told me the answer." "I haven't even given the answer to my father or mother," he replied. "Why should I tell you? So she cried whenever she was with him and kept it up for the rest of the celebration. At last, on the seventh day, he told her the answer because he was tormenting him with her nagging. When she explained the riddle to the young men,
Not a nagging woman.
yep,
Okay.
then she explained the riddle to the
I'm
young
sorry. I
men.
love you, sweetheart.
So before the sunset of the seventh day, the men of the town came to Samson with their answer. What is sweeter than honey, and what is stronger than a lion? Samson replied, If you hadn't plowed with my heifer, you wouldn't have solved my riddle. Then the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him, and he went down to the town of Ashkelon, killed 30 men, took their belongings, and gave their clothing to the men who had solved his riddle. But Samson was furious about what had happened, and he went back home to live with his father and mother. So his wife was given in marriage to the man who had been Samson's best man at the wedding. It's kind of a crazy story.
Yeah, it is.
So Samson goes into town to talk to this woman. A lion attacks him on his way there. He rips the lion's jaw apart, right?
Mm-hmm.
He goes in, he talks to the woman, he's pleased with her, and then he goes back, and then after some time, he comes back for the wedding, and there's honey in the carcass of this lion. So he eats some, he takes some to his parents, and then the town has given him 30 men to basically be his bachelor party, right?
Mm-hmm.
And or to be his companions is what it says. But
yeah.
I mean, and so he gives them a riddle, which is the lion and the honey.
Lion and the honey.
And then he doesn't give them the answer because why would you give someone the answer to your riddle, right? But his wife, this pagan woman, basically nags him into giving him the answer to the riddle. And then he has to go and pay up. He has to pay up, right? So he kills 30 men, 30 Philistine men, right?
Mm-hmm.
And gives his bachelor party people his their stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then he's so mad that he leaves. He just leaves, doesn't get married, and goes back home to live with his mom and pop. And then so the woman is married to the man that was his
best man.
So that's strike one for the Philistine women, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now chapter 15. Later on, during the wheat harvest, Samson took a young goat as a present to his wife. He said, I am going into my wife's room to sleep with her, but her father wouldn't let him in because she was married to his best man.
Mm-hmm.
I truly thought you must hate her, her father explained, so I gave her in marriage to your best man. But look, her younger sister is even more beautiful than she is. Marry her instead. Samson said, This time I cannot be blamed for everything I'm going to do to you Philistines. Then he went out and caught 300 foxes. He tied their tails together in pairs, and he fastened a torch to each pair of tails. Then he lit the torches and let the foxes run through the grain fields of the Philistines. He burned all of their grain to the ground, including the sheaves and the uncut grain. He also destroyed their vineyards and olive groves. Who did this? The Philistines demanded. Samson was the reply, because his father-in-law from Timnah gave Samson's wife to be married to his best man. So the Philistines went and got the woman and her father and burned them to death. Because you did this, Samson vowed, I won't rest until I take revenge on you. So he attacked the Philistines with great fury and killed many of them. Then he went to live in a cave in the rock of Edom. The Philistines retaliated by setting up camp in Judah and spreading out near the town of Lehi. The men of Judah asked the Philistines, "Why are you attacking us?" The Philistines replied, "We've come to capture Samson. We've come to pay him back for what he did to us." So 3,000 men of Judah went down to get Samson at the cave at the rock of Edom. And they said to Samson, "Don't you realize that the Philistines rule over us? What are you doing to us?" But Samson replied, "I only did to them what they did to me." But the men of Judah told him, "We have come to tie you up and take you over to the Philistines." "All right," Samson said, "but promise that you won't kill me yourselves." "We will only tie you up and hand you over to the Philistines," they replied. "We won't kill you." So they tied him up with 2 new ropes and brought him up from the rock. As Samson arrived at Lehi, the Philistines came shouting in triumph. But the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon Samson, and he snapped the ropes on his arms as if they were burnt strands of flax, and they fell from his wrist. Then he found the jawbone of a donkey, recently killed donkey. He picked it up and killed 1,000 Philistines with it. Then Samson said, "With the jawbone of a donkey I've piled them in heaps. With the jawbone of a donkey I've killed 1,000 men."
Can you imagine killing 1,000 men with a jawbone?
Yeah. When he finished his boasting, he threw away the jawbone, and the place was named Jawbone Hill. Samson was now very thirsty, and he cried out to the Lord, "You have accomplished this great victory by the strength of your servant. Must I now die of thirst and fall into the hands of these pagans?" So God caused water to gush out from the hollow in the ground at Lehi, and Samson was revived as he drank. Then he named that place the spring of the one who cried out, and it is still in Lehi to this day. Samson judged Israel for 20 years during the period when the Philistines dominated the land.
Mm,
Um,
it's deep.
yeah, it can. It could be.
I'd say that because just think of the destruction one man did
Mm-hmm.
just because he had God behind him.
So, and
Mm.
I think, here at the end, Samson was left emotionally drained, as well as physically drained.
Mm-hmm.
After his victory over the Philistines.
Oh,
right?
you can imagine how parched he was.
And he's complaining to God. Probably, I would exaggerating the situation, right? Now must I die of thirst, right? And it's easy after a major victory in our lives. You get the job, or whatever it is. It's easy to feel emotionally spent or physically pained. And we have to remember not to stop to have a pity party, right? Because that's only going to lead to failure.
Yep.
We just have to rely on God's strength to get us through and meet our needs.
Yep.
And then we can be ready to face the next battle in our spiritual growth, which sometimes they come one right after the other.
Oh yeah. Sometimes you don't get.
Sometimes you don't get a break.
No,
Yeah.
but each battle makes you stronger.
And I think that that's what that's trying to portray here. Right?
Yeah.
That's what I get from it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's what it's saying. Basically,
Our dogs are having a fit for some reason.
basically the same thing we've been saying for the last 2 podcasts. Keep your eyes on God.
Whether you're on your highest high or on your lowest low,
Yep.
keep your eyes on God.
Yep. We said an hour. We've already gone 2 hours.
What did I say?
So-
before? We might want to keep it short. But
Yeah.
God said,
Yeah.
So anyway,
So
y'all just stick with us.
here in chapter 16, it says, one day Samson went out to the Philistine town of Gaza and spent the night with a prostitute. Word soon spread that Samson was there, and the men of Gaza gathered together and waited all night at the town gates, and they kept quiet during the night, saying to themselves, when the light of morning comes, we will kill him. But Samson stayed in bed only until midnight. Then he got up, took hold of the doors of the town gate, including the 2 posts, lifted them up, bar and all. He put them on his shoulders and carried them all the way up to the top of the hill across from Hebron. Sometime later, Samson fell in love with a woman named Delilah, who lived in the valley of Sorek. The rulers of Philistines went out to her and said, entice Samson to tell you what makes him so strong and how he can be outpowered and tied up securely. Then each of us will give you 1,100 pieces of silver. So Delilah goes to Samson, says, what makes you so strong? And what would it take to tie you up securely? And Samson says, if I were tied up with 7 new bowstrings that have not yet been dried, I would become as weak as anyone else. So the Philistine rulers took Delilah, the 7 new bowstrings. She tied him up. And she had hidden some men in one of the inner rooms of her house. And she cried out, Samson, the Philistines have come to capture you. Samson snapped the bowstrings, because obviously that's not what's going to make him weak.
Exactly.
That's
not his kryptonite.
And then Delilah, imagine this. This woman just tried to get you killed.
Mm-hmm.
And then she says to him, you've been making fun of me and telling me lies. Now, please tell me how you can be tied up securely.
Yeah. But he not have something come across his head that said ding, 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 ding.
For real. Like, it's like, but sometimes we don't want to look past our selfish desires.
Yeah.
You know? And I don't know.
It's like ding, 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 ding. This woman's trying to take my strength.
For real.
Why?
She's trying to get me killed.
Why does she want to take it? Why?
Did
he not ask her the question? Why?
So Samson tells her, if I were tied up with brand new ropes that had never been used, I would become as weak as anyone. So she took new ropes and tied him up. And the men were in the room just like they were before.
Yeah.
She did the same thing. She cries, Samson, the Philistines have come to capture you.
Yeah.
Samson snaps the ropes. And then the audacity of this woman, she says, you've been making fun of me and telling me lies.
Yeah.
Again. Now tell me how I can tie you up securely.
Yeah. It seems a bit... You crazy woman.
And then he says, if you were to weave the 7 braids of my hair into the fabric on your loom and tighten it with the loom shuttle, I would become as weak as anyone else. So while he slept, Delilah wove the 7 braids of his hair into the fabric. Then she tightened it with the loom shuttle, again cried out, Samson, the Philistines have come to capture you. But Samson woke up, pulled back the loom shuttle, and yanked his hair away from the loom and the fabric. Then Delilah pouted. How can you tell me I love you when you don't share your secrets with me? You've made fun of me 3 times now, and you still haven't told me what makes you so strong. She tormented him with her nagging day after day until he's sick to death of it. Finally, Samson shared his secret with her. My hair's never been cut. He confessed, for I was dedicated to God as a Nazarite from birth. If my head were shaved, my strength would leave me, and I would become as weak as anyone else. Delilah realized he had finally told her the truth, so she went to the Philistine rulers. Come back one more time, she said, for he has finally told me his secret. So they returned with their money, right? Delilah lulled Samson to sleep with his head on her lap. Then she called the man to shave off 7 locks of his hair. In this way, she began to bring him down, and his strength left him. Then she cried out, Samson, Philistines are here to capture you. When he woke up, he thought, I'll do as I did before and shake myself free, but he didn't realize that the Lord had left him. So the Philistines captured him, gouged out his eyes, and took him to Gaza, where he was bound with bronze chains and forced to grind grain in the prison. But before long, his hair began to grow back. The Philistine rulers had a great festival, offering sacrifices and praising their god, Dagon. They said, our God has given us victory over our enemy Samson. When the people saw him, they praised their God, saying, our God has delivered our enemy to us. The one who killed so many of us is now in our power. Half drunk by now, the people demanded, bring out Samson so we can amuse us. So they brought him out from the prison to amuse them, and they had him stand between the pillars supporting the roof. And Samson said to the young servant who was leading him by the hand, place my hands against the pillars that hold up the temple. I want to rest them. Now the temple was completely filled with people. All the Philistine rulers were there, and there were about 3,000 men and women on the roof who were watching as Samson amused them. Then Samson prayed to the Lord, Sovereign Lord, remember me again, O God. Please strengthen me just one more time. With one blow, let me pay back the Philistines for the loss of my 2 eyes. Then Samson put his hands on the 2 center pillars that held up the temple. Pushing against them with both hands, he prayed, let me die with the Philistines. And the temple crashed down on the Philistine rulers and all the people. So he killed more people when he died than he had during his entire lifetime. Later, his brothers and relatives went back to get his body. They took him back home and buried him between Zorah and Eshtaol, where his father Manoah was buried. Samson had judged Israel for 20 years. So
The thing here, and I may be completely wrong, he really believed that God was with him and gave him his strength because of his hair. And when the hair was taken, he believed God had left him.
Well, because that was one of the things that the angel of the Lord told his parents.
Not to ever cut
not
his hair.
to cut his hair, yeah.
But in reality, God was still with him. He just didn't realize it. He really thought, oh, my hair's gone, God's gone.
Well,
but then when he cried out, God let him know, I am still here. You still have the strength.
Mm-hmm. Well, Samson has this problem with pagan women.
Yeah.
And when we say pagan women, it's women that aren't Christian.
Yeah.
They're Philistines. They worship Dagon, I think it said. So, and I think that his problem with these pagan women is symbolic, and I think it's symbolic of our struggle with sin.
Yeah.
Because I don't know where I was going with that thought, but I think that that's what it is. It's symbolic of our struggle with sin because no matter what we do, we'll turn from it and then we'll go right back to it. But God can provide an abundant life if we're willing to give up or avoid that forbidden fruit. And it's different from person to person.
Mm-hmm.
You know, each person has their own vice or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
But that's where we call to God and ask for His help to show us our potential stumbling blocks in our our growth, spiritual growth. And then we can confess them to Him and ask Him to remove those things from our life.
Right.
We can ask Him to remove those desires from our heart.
Right. It was like saying a while ago, we say, okay, God, you are our God. Excuse me. But we don't understand, okay, on Sunday, God, you are our God. But on Monday, my job is my God. My car could be my God. Money could be my God.
Social media.
Social media could be my God.
Mm-hmm.
Running around with women could be my God. Lust. Anything that is on your mind through the day more than God.
Yeah.
And I try more and more every day to bring God into more of my day.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, sometimes I get tied up, and my mind gets my mind gets off to the side, and I do forget a little bit. I don't think it's wrong to. I don't want to say forget God, but to get sidetracked for a minute. But I'm not talking about being sidetracked for hours or days at a time. I'm talking about for just a short period of time. Because God should always be on our mind. God should always be our God. He should always be our center of attraction. But we get so tied up. And because this day and time, you have to work. There's no way around it. Now, I did finally reach the age of retirement, and I did retire. One day I get
but cry about it.
No, I good gracious. Okay, don't even start. I've been ragged about it since. But anyway, our everyday thing is we have to work. We have to work to provide to have shelter for ourselves, for our wives, for our husbands, for our children. So work is a big thing in our life. We have to provide for those. Uh, so yes, work eats up a lot of our time. But just because you're working doesn't mean that you can't be praising God at the same time. In fact, if you would praise God more on your job, I think your job would be more prosperous, more satisfying, probably. Because God will bless things around us if we'll keep Him in mind. It took me a lot of years to figure this out, so I'm trying to help younger people not have to take that long. But I think we're getting a thunderstorm.
Yeah.
So I just heard the rumbles.
Yep.
But yeah, we get sidetracked. We can make things God so fast, and we don't even realize it.
Yeah. We have to remember that Satan is deceitful.
Oh,
right. But he shows himself as an angel of light, and
Yeah, people get
He's
this.
not going to entice us or entice us or lure us into sins that we don't find pleasurable.
Right.
He's going to find things that
That you desire,
we
that
enjoy,
that
that
you
look
enjoy,
good, that smell good,
yeah.
feel good, and that's going to make it harder for us to not do those things.
And another misconception is people finally accept Christ and they say, okay, Satan, you can't bother me anymore. Well, you're wrong. You're wrong. He can't have your soul, but he can sure stop you from enjoying what God has in store for you. He can stop you from leading other people to God.
Yeah.
He can stop you in your tracks. But and a lot of people don't think about that because Satan's job is not only to harvest souls for himself, but to stop you from harvesting souls.
Yeah, I always say that in the Garden of Eden, Satan caused or started the fall of man just by planting a seed of doubt.
Just to set it out. Yep.
And his
Or desire.
the way that he works has not changed to this day.
Mm-mm.
He just has new tools to work
New
with.
tools. Yep. That's true.
Yeah, I think this has been good. I think we probably need to wrap up just in case. Our power is prone to go out if it gets windy and stormy. So
yeah, very bad about it.
We would still have this, but we would lose the camera and stuff. So, yeah.
And since we're trying to stay under an hour, we need to go ahead and cut it.
Yeah, we're at 2 hours and 7 minutes.
I told you. We might want to keep it short, but God might say no.
Yeah.
And even though you tried to cut it to the minimums, I've tried to keep my mouth shut tonight.
Yeah.
It's
So
2 hours.
So this was another good one. I think this was. I enjoyed this one. I think I got more out of the other judges, Gideon and Deborah, than I did from Samson.
Yeah, actually, I think there's more.
Really, and it's funny to me that seems to be the case, but Samson is the one that is top.
That's the one that's talked about. He's the one that's remembered. And there again,
and maybe there's a reason for that. But I don't know what it is right now. I think we could learn. Maybe, especially even as a children's story. The story of Deborah is a better children's story than.
Even there, we have to think. Even though it's the Bible, but as I said at the beginning, this story has been dumbed down for the kids. Now, never thought about it before, but now thinking about it, did Satan get involved in this too to get our minds off of what these judges are doing and on to just Samson?
Oh, Satan's in the churches.
Oh, he's in them. There ain't no doubt about it. He's all in them. Those walls don't stop him.
No.
Those are not walls of steel that keep Satan out.
No. Not to say there's not good churches out there.
Oh, they're really they are good churches. Really good. We're not putting anybody down.
We really need to wrap this up. So I haven't even thought about it. What are we going to do next week?
No, that's a good
What
question.
are we going to study this week?
I really hadn't thought about it either.
You hadn't come up with anything so far.
Oh, yes, I got with the very first one. What was it?
No, you didn't.
Yeah, I did.
No, you didn't. I said I wanted to do David and Goliath, and that's what we did. Yeah.
Y'all tell us.
We can go back. I got receipts.
Right? Receipts.
Yeah, we can go back and look.
I don't know. I'm going to be honest. It's hard to top last week's with Jonah.
Yeah, Jonah was good.
I really got into that one. I don't know. What is another?
Okay. Look,
I mean, I think of some.
I
But
don't know. I don't know why this
I
happens
kind
to
of like
me.
to hold them at holidays, but
I don't know why this happens to me, but I feel like for some reason we need to do the story of Moses.
I was thinking John the Baptist.
I think we need to do Moses. I'm sorry. I know I
No,
told you I
no.
wanted you to pick, but I think we need to do the story of Moses. And that's a very long one. I'm going to go ahead and say that that's probably going to be a two-parter at least.
Or maybe 3.
Because that is one of the books or one of the stories that I actually do know a little bit about. All right. And I know it's a very long one. Very, very
Yeah,
long.
Moses would be a very good one, but yeah,
Um,
it would very possibly go into 3.
Yeah. Yeah, it very well could. Because I'm talking about we're going to start from the birth of Moses, before the birth of Moses.
Okay.
Right. Because there's a story there that needs to be told before.
There is a story right there in his birth. There sure is.
No, I'm saying there's a story before Moses is even born
Well, that's true too.
that needs to be told.
Yeah, that's true. Because
Okay, we don't need to go into it right now,
You
but
need to know where it's coming
we're
from.
going to tune in next week.
Next week.
Uh,
If we haven't bored you to death, put you to sleep.
yeah. Next week we'll start the story of Moses, and that's a probably 2, maybe 3, maybe 4-parter. Who knows? We'll
who
go
knows?
until we get done.
Yeah, if we say 3, God might say, "Oh, I'll make it 6."
Yeah,
So,
for some reason, because I honestly have not even thought about it, and I told you I wanted you to pick this time, and I'm sitting here thinking Moses.
that's fine. Moses is fine, and I'll come up with one that we can do after Moses.
That kind of ties in too, though, because we were just talking about the Israelites after they were in the after they had settled in the Promised Land, and now we'll go back to Moses, who leads them out of Egypt. So
Sounds cool.
all right,
And maybe one of these sessions we'll do like we do in church. Sometimes we'll just have open discussion. We'll just talk about whatever comes up.
well,
See what God gives us.
We have to get viewers first before we do that.
I'll tell you, friends, to check in. Come on now. Come on. Check in on us.
Yeah,
We really do want some feedback. We really do.
We'll get it. It'll come.
Oh, it'll come. It'll come.
All right. You want to lead us out?
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. I love talking to my Lord Jesus. Thank you, Lord, for everything you've given us. God, this has been a beautiful day. We had a good time at service this morning. We had some good discussions in service. God, we had some good fellowship. We've had a good time today. Lord, we've had time to spend with my grandchildren, which is always a blessing. Lord, we thank you for everything. The meals you give us, God, even the breath you give us to wake us in the mornings. God, the little miracles that happens to us and around us every day, Lord, help us to open our eyes and see more of them, Lord, because the more miracles we see, the more we praise you and thank you for it. Lord, always keep us mindful of where everything comes from. Take this podcast, Lord, and bless it, Lord. We want you to put your hands around it. Lord, we don't want it for our glory, we want it for your glory. And God, we pray that you bless it. Put tune viewers in. Please don't let us be too boring, Lord, that they will come back and they'll watch and help them to learn, help them to teach us to learn. Father, we want to see this thing grow into something that would be mighty for you. Father, in the name of Jesus, we pray for the forgiveness of our sins. Walk with us until the next time. Thank you, Lord Jesus. Amen.
Amen. All right.
Y'all come back now.
Y'all
You
be
hear?
good. Come back next week.
Come back now. You hear?